Welcome into Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara, joined as always by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Moseley. We are here to wrap up Oregon's 49-7 defeat down on the farm at Stanford last night. A rough one for the Ducks as they fall to 4-3 overall, and more importantly, 1-3 in Pac-12 play. Offensively, the Ducks just couldn't get it going, particularly in the passing game. They actually statistically put up some decent numbers rushing the ball, but Stanford got out to an early lead. Bryce Love was everything as advertised in the opening quarter, and the Ducks just had no answers.
Yeah, I owe some apologies to some people I chatted with over the last few days, because I was really convinced this was going to be a game and the Ducks had a heck of a shot. Despite the fact Bryce Love is a great player and showed that in the first half, I really thought, much to my folly in hindsight, that the quarterback play in this game was going to be close to even. Obviously, I thought Oregon was going to get better quarterback play than it got the week before. Clearly, the wheels are spinning there. But Keller Christ for Stanford, completing almost 75% of his passes, a couple of deep balls early that I think loosened up the defense a little bit. Yeah. I saw David Shaw complimented him and thought he was the difference as well. I didn't really see him being a factor, and thus it coming down the line of scrimmage and the Ducks having a solid chance there. So did not go how I thought at all.
So Bryce Love breaks off one of his vintage, patented, I guess you could say, 50-yard runs. He has a 50-yard run in every game this year. After that big explosion play, the Ducks did a better job, I thought, of bottling him up. But unlike Stanford teams in the past where they've just ridden a running back, they're sharing the load a little bit more. They really kind of showed off their depth, I thought, at the running back position and at the quarterback position. Chris was the main guy, but they were able to rotate some other players in there as well and were effective. And they didn't do anything flashy or crazy athletic. They were just consistent. And I think on the flip side for Oregon in the passing game, this game is just still a little too fast, I think, for Braxton Burmeister.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of complaints about play calling, and the Ducks maybe needed opening up or do run 5-yard slants as if that's the magic potion to solve everything. This is a guy who a couple weeks ago was redshirting, yeah. Not getting very many practice reps at all, and maybe you look back at that and say it's folly, but I think any team, if you say, hey, you're down to your third quarterback, you're going to be in trouble no matter what. So you can't just throw the whole offense at him. You can't dink and dunk when basically all 11 defenders are in the box to stop the run because of how predictable the play calling starts to get at a certain point. We saw a short pass attempt that a lineman jumped up at the line and plucked out of the air. It's not as easy as that. So just a huge challenge for this Oregon team right now, until Justin Herbert returns, to find some answers on offense, because they tried to just ride the running game and it just wasn't enough to beat Stanford.
I think also you're starting to really miss Kalana Apelu and A.J. Hotchkiss as at the inside linebacker spot. Losing both of those guys, Apelu for the season, we're not sure on the timetable for the return for Hotchkiss, but losing that depth at the position, especially against a team like Stanford that just runs so much power, and you really need your front seven healthy if at all possible. That seemed to be an area that the Cardinal were able to kind of exploit against the Ducks last
night. And the long touchdown run, you mentioned it. Love had a carry early in the game where he bounced it outside. On the long touchdown run, the Ducks were able to keep contained that time, but then the middle of the field just opened up. And yeah, Troy Dye, Jimmy Swain were the two leading tacklers. As much as Stanford ran between the tackles, they certainly had their opportunities. But yeah, it'd be great to have, if nothing else, more depth there. But those guys were starting for a reason, and it sure would be nice to have them. I thought some of Oregon's freshmen at least showed off their competitiveness. That was impressive. Diomedor Lenore, I thought, took some steps forward. Really stayed with it the whole game at cornerback. Thomas Graham. He's starting to give up some plays the last couple of weeks, but he stays with it. There's a compete level there that you appreciate. So that's there, and that's good. Those are good signs. But right now, for a team that's desperate to get back to a bowl after missing it last year, you don't just want positive signs, you want wins. So you start looking ahead at the calendar here and saying, hey, where can the Ducks pick up a couple now?
Yeah, I think that just looking at the game from above last night, in the second half in particular, it's, the score is out of hand, the outcome is all but decided, and so I'm looking for players that are still still showing the energy and the juice, as Willie Taggart puts
I think
it.
Jim Levitt is as well, and that's why you see all those freshmen.
And Brady Breeze, for instance, it could have been 100-0. You never would have known it. He was, he runs to the ball, he finishes off tackles. Even if he doesn't get credited with it, I mean, he puts it in there. You can tell that he enjoys playing the game. Brendan Schooler had a couple receptions in this one, played quite a bit in the second half. He's going 100% all the time. Jalen Jelks never gave up in this one, had another really good game. You wouldn't know it by the scoreboard, but another guy that just doesn't take plays off. And I'm not saying that players are taking plays off, but you can just tell by body language how the game flow is affecting them. And those are three guys that stood out to me. Like, you wouldn't have known if you didn't know what the score was. Right. You would have no clue.
It is a couple weeks in a row where the defense has given up some things early, seemed to clamp down a little bit. The second quarter. The second quarter's been good to Oregon's defense in Pac-12 play, really. Where they've started to clean some things up and adjust to what they've seen early. But then it's a couple weeks in a row now, too, where I think you get into the second half and things just start to – it feels like the offense just isn't there enough to get yourselves back out of a hole. And that's going to wear on some guys. It's just human nature. So it's harder to hold against the defense when they give up a few more plays late there at the end. But, again, you are looking for those individuals who are competing. Late in the game, 6 true freshmen on the field at once. Faoliu and Scott on the defensive line, Samson New at linebacker, Lenore, Graham, and Pickett in the secondary together for at least one snap. So, hey, let's get those guys out there, get them some playing time, and go with guys that are fighting for spots. They want to earn more reps later in this season. So there was a chance to do that.
I thought a little bit about Washington last night, not the 2017 Washington team, but a Washington team from about 4 or 5 years ago that was getting beat on a regular basis, and they had a really young defense with a lot of guys playing and a lot of guys getting beat, and those same guys emerged, and a couple years later were leading them to the Pac-12 championship. I'm not saying that's a given and that's going to happen for Oregon, but I think that there are some encouraging signs by getting that group not just playing time, but playing time together as a unit to try to gel.
Other side of the coin, I think Darian Felix has been put in some situations where, hey, the game's out of hand. What's the incentive? Well, the incentive is to make an impression. I mean, he's a guy I like watching run the football right now, and it sure would be nice to see him get more chances too, regardless of game situations going forward. I mean, I just see him as a guy who can make some people miss. And again, if you're in a situation now where you're really leaning on the run game and defenses know that, you're going to want a guy that can make a couple guys miss and still get some yards. And he looks like a guy who can do that. So 17-yard carry, hard to argue with that yesterday too. So more flashes there too. But the bottom line continues to be quarterback play, as Willie Taggart said after the game. Obviously, Taylor Alley, Braxton Burmeister are practicing at a higher level and they're showing games. It's just not translating. So that's really the key right now as you transition ahead into the UCLA week here. What can you find that guys can excel in and master at practice that's going to carry over into a game so that regardless of whatever the defense throws at them, they're still going to be able to see what they need to see, execute what they need to execute, because it's just not there right now.
And I think that it's natural to want to completely blow up the offense and retool it for a different guy with Justin Herbert unavailable, but that's unrealistic as well. It's not as easy as just doing that. However, I think that the coaching staff has talked about it a little bit, and they are going to try to continue to tweak it in ways that makes it easier for their quarterbacks. And this will be a really good test against UCLA. I think everybody was hopeful for a step forward after the Washington State loss. It was a step backward at Stanford, so it really needs to, this is going to be a big game, win or lose, to at least on the offensive side of the ball for the Ducks to show that they can make some sort of progress without Justin Herbert.
This is a daunting stretch of the schedule. We knew that, but you look at Stanford and UCLA and Utah and the way their seasons have progressed, these aren't unbeatable teams. These aren't super teams. I think, other than Washington, despite the loss they took, nobody's really standing out in the Pac-12 as, there's a big group of teams that are closely bunched. So there's some separation here and there, but, these feel like games Oregon can win if things click right. And, again, that sort of was where my optimism came from going into the Stanford game. That if things broke right, and again, if the quarterback play had been closer to even, and the way Oregon's been playing on the line of scrimmage the last few weeks, or at least the flashes they've shown, that there's a chance to be competitive. I mean, the same thing applies, but you got to get competent quarterback play, and so again, that's a challenge.
Going into UCLA, that's a team that's also desperate for a victory after losing to Arizona on Saturday, giving up a ton of yards on the ground. That has to be encouraging anyway for the Oregon offense to see that might be an area where they can exploit a little bit. However, you still need to have that balance in the passing game. We've seen it in the past. Even the UCLA teams that might not have the best record, they always seem to have talent out on the field. And if they decide to bring it, it's going to be certainly a difficult matchup. But considering having to go back out on the road again, a place where the Ducks are 0-2 now in Pac-12 play.
That's the other side of the coin. I mean, there's opportunities here to break through over the next couple of weeks, but none of these teams are slouches either. As you find,
Josh Rosen is a quarterback for UCLA.
Right. So. I mean, and again, further down the road is Utah, and that's been a tough matchup for Oregon the last few years. So, again, as you start thinking about bowl eligibility and getting a couple more wins, where are those going to come from? I think a lot of folks took it for granted, myself included, a few weeks ago. Hey, Arizona, Oregon State late in the year, we're going to be chances to get those. Well, or Arizona now has suddenly looked like they have the reincarnation of Michael Vick playing quarterback for them, and Oregon State's got a coaching change and looked like they showed a little more fight against Colorado. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So those aren't gimmies by any means. So it's just going to be a scratching and clawing through the rest of the season for the Ducks. Day by day in practice, game by game. Each Saturday, and so it can be interesting. But we knew this was going to be a season of potential for highs and lows, some frustrations, and also some things to celebrate. And we've had some things to celebrate early. Lately, it's a lot of frustration. So obviously, the team really wants to get it going the other direction, just as the fans want to see that.
We will be with you throughout the week with the Quack Minute. If you have any questions, comments for Rob or I, you can reach us on Twitter. I am at McNamara UO. He is at Duck Football. Until next time. We'll see you.